All right. Well, let's begin the informational meeting on Main Street. I want to thank everyone for coming today. My name is Scott Spence. I'm Lacey's city manager. I'd also like to introduce our city council. Obviously, this is your meeting. We're here to listen about your concerns about Main Street. That's the purpose of this meeting. But we also wanted to clarify some of the information about Main Street and what it is and what it is not. I'd like to go over quickly in terms of just the meeting. I'd like to spend as little time up here as possible so you have an opportunity to kind of make comments to, again, city leadership. So meeting overview, we'll talk about Main Street. We'll try to clarify in terms of some of the moving parts that we have about homelessness, and we'll get into that later. We're also going to provide a comment period for the community. Now, the idea there is this is for comments. So we will do something similar to a Lacey City Council meeting where you have 3 minutes. We will have a yellow card telling you have 30 seconds left, and then a red card that your 3 minutes has been used up. Then at the very end, we're going to have an opportunity for people to ask direct questions of council and, if necessary, for staff. So again, I know this is a difficult issue. I could tell you I've spent many nights thinking about this issue. I know you're concerned about it. I can tell you that your council is concerned about it. Your staff is concerned about it. But we're trying to respond in a proactive way to an issue that is slowly becoming a crisis really for the entire region. And so hopefully this meeting will provide some answers for you. And I'd like to just go ahead and begin with that meeting with that sort of premise. So first of all, there's 4 things that are currently being discussed in the community. And unfortunately, I think we're intertwining those 4 things. The first issue is the camping ordinance. Then there's the parking ordinance. We also have an emergency housing ordinance, and there's also a regional discussion about the Carpenter Road Stabilization Site. So very quickly, council adopted a camping ordinance in June of this year. It addresses camping in public property. We have a need to protect our public spaces. This does run up against Martin versus Boise. I'm sure everyone's aware of that, but that's the difficulty, and it limits our ability to respond if there's no shelter resources. However, it does give a tool to the police to engage in a proactive way with homelessness to find out what circumstances they're facing. The second thing that council did was adopt the parking ordinance in September of 2019. So this limits commercial as well as RVs to 4 hours within the city in any public street or parking lot. It also authorizes the designated permitted parking areas, which Main Street is a proposal. But it also allows the city to issue temporary permits 12 hours only with certain specific conditions. The other issue is the emergency housing ordinance. Now this is still under review. Some of you came last Thursday. There's been a recommendation from the Planning Commission that is still being reviewed by the City Council. But this is really in a response to the lack of resources within the Thurston County region for shelter resources. It potentially gives us a partnership with faith-based organizations as well as nonprofits to provide that resource. And then finally, there's the Carpenter Road Stabilization Site. This is a regional discussion. It's in its early stages at best. Again, it's also in response to a lack of shelter resources. And there's going to be a separate public process for that. So I just want to clarify that. So Main Street. So why do we choose this location? I can tell you right now, there is no good location. I think everyone would agree with that. But this location was chosen because the lack of development in the area and also adjacent residential. So for clarification, the nearest site is 7-Eleven. It's about 900 feet away. The Squalor store is probably the next thing that's closest to this site. Overpass, I-5 Marvin Road, exit 111. And then you have Cabela's, which is really about 3/4 miles away from this site. And then the nearest residential is almost a mile away. So the Main Street as envisioned would have this type of detail. Again, there's no tents that are proposed for Main Street. That's an important distinction. This is for parking restrictions only, so it's wheeled vehicles only. It's non-24 hours. We're talking a 12-hour site, not 24 hours. It will have security cameras. It's lighted because it's a street. There's fencing, there's a 2-yard dumpster, there's 3 portable toilets, there's hand wash stations, and there's about 35 spaces, which is really a combination of RV or cars. So here is a windshield view of that site. This is also part of a construction area with exit 111. You can see the dumpster, the porta potties. You can see some of the spaces that have been outlined. You can see the fencing on both sides. And again, completely fenced. You can see the construction going on with exit 111. The idea would be have parking on basically the north side of the road and the south side of the road. And then you'd be exiting going southbound. From a different perspective, this is just a drone. The right-of-way from curb to curb is about 100 feet. So you really have about 300 feet on both sides that there's just no development. And again, you can see the characteristics of really a construction area. So again, that's part of the reason why this was looked at as a potential site or as a resource to deal with parking. And we have a chase car there for some reason. And want to reiterate too, with the temporary parking permit policy, there's really 4 conditions that need to be met if you're going to get a parking permit to exceed 4 hours. 1, you do have to have ID. You have to have insurance. All the occupants will be validated. You cannot have any outstanding warrants. And then you also have to be proactively engaged in a social service provider. So that would be the condition if you met those to get a temporary parking permit. Now, I think the number 1 question for everyone is about safety and security. I want to have the Chief Simcoe talk about in general because they are the ones in charge of managing the permit process. So I'm going to have Chief come up.
Thanks, Scott. So as the manager said, in putting together the planning for this process, as your police chief, it's very important that we put together criteria in a public place that offers safety and security to not only the community that's not using the site, but also for those that will be in need of the site. The site is an overnight site only. It's not for 24 hours, not for extended days. It's for overnight only. And again, everyone in the vehicle that is applying, so the person applying for the permit would have to have a valid driver's license. You can't drive on the street without a valid driver's license. You have to have insurance, you have to have registration. Everyone else inside the vehicle is going to be identified. We need to know who's going to be staying overnight in a permitted area. So everyone inside the vehicle will be identified. We are going to uphold the law. If there are outstanding warrants and appropriate enforcement action will be taken. And then, just importantly, the folks need to be actively engaged in social services. To date, we've had 2 people, and this has been in effect for about 2.5 weeks with the back parking lot here. We've had 2 people ask for a permit. No one else wanted one. Those 2 people, one person didn't qualify because of registration and insurance purposes, and the second person said they didn't want to deal with any social services. They just wanted to stay where they wanted to stay. So when we told them they didn't qualify for the permit, they left the city. So that's what has happened to date. So I just want to give you a brief overview on that. I know there'll be a lot of questions, and we're prepared to answer those as we move forward in the presentation.
Create the screen up. So now we're going to be in the comment stage. So we have staff with 2 roving mics. So if you have a question, if you have a comment only, please raise your hand. Staff will give you a mic, and then raise your hand if you want the next opportunity to make a comment. Again, we'll do the 3-minute rule. Donna has the cards. Yellow will be 30 seconds left, and then the red card will be 3 minutes left. Again, we're here to listen to what your concerns or comments about that. Again, then at the very end, we'll open this up for Q&A.
Get my notes here. Thank you for the opportunity to talk. I'm concerned that overnight RV camps may do more harm than good, dispersing RVs into Lacey's neighborhoods, parks, parking lots, and streets during the day. Where are they going to go? Materials from this council have called overnight RV camps a temporary interim solution to the problem of RVs parked near City Hall. This begs the question, is there a longer-term solution being planned? And if so, what? If not, I wonder if the answer might not ultimately be the establishment of additional RV parks RV parks have been a part of our community for decades, proving a valuable source of affordable and low-income housing. There are several along Martin Way here. Many of our snowbirds winter in RV parks throughout the Southwest. Since most of the homeless have some source of income, what may be needed now are RV parks where the RVs can rent space on a sliding scale basis. Such parks might be set up and operated by nonprofits such as the Low Income Housing Institute and others that have been operating in the Olympia area. RV parks offer a more stable community than overnight camps. Very importantly, they provide residents with an actual mailing address so they can apply for jobs or training, receive benefit checks, and register to vote. RV parks allow occupants to become rent-paying residents who spend their money locally, vote, and pay sales taxes. With a utility hookup and an address, homelessness is eliminated. As a form of subsidized low-income housing, RV parks might be hard to beat. They involve less construction, are high density, faster to set up, generate revenue, and occupants bring their own houses. I urge City of Lacey to consider using state funding recently made available by HB 1219 and HB 1406 and the recent state capital budget providing loans and grants for affordable housing to create a better solution to the problem of homeless RVs. Thank you.
So my question is, we're talking about 14% of the homeless population according to this sheet here. Is that correct? Just the ones that are vehicle abandoned building? Is that correct?
I don't think they have the sheet that you're looking at.
Well, where are these people now that you're addressing? Where are they staying now?
So maybe just to clarify, that's a great question to have. If we can wait till the end of that, just make sure everyone has an opportunity to make a comment, and then if we can come back to that at the Q&A.
So
right now is the comment period, and so we're just trying to allow everybody to.
well, then I had a follow-up to that. So where are they now, and then why is the need now to relocate them when, according to this sheet again, the homeless population is going down, not up? So what is this emergency need when you're looking at the overall population going down?
Are there any other comments?
Thank you. My name is Brian, and I live near Campus Glen. My comment is this, is that if we have people that are homeless, they have a RV, they can pay for their driver's license, they can pay for their insurance, why are we giving them a place free of charge to stay when they could afford that as well? If they're getting some sort of sustenance, substance, whatever, they should be able to pay for that. The other thing is, we talked about safety and security. My wife is just already frightened out of her mind because we've had at Meridian area unauthorized homeless camps there that have been cleared out, but they're there. And our home has been, the lawn's been walked across by homeless people, knocked on door, begging for things to give to them, all of this stuff. Personally, I am frightened for my family's safety. I don't see security. I don't know, and I haven't heard yet, if this RV space availability for these folks is going to be having police going through there at night. What about if somebody just decides they want to park there? How do you thwart them from going there without the permit? I don't have a lot of answers yet to a lot of questions that I have, but I can tell you, and my family, my neighbors, and my friends, we've all had great conversations. We are all scared to death that this is going to get out of hand. We've seen on the news, it's going to be like Seattle, Portland, all of these things. And I'll tell you what, somebody comes into my house, it's going to be a problem for that person. And I don't care if for you folks that are up here in city council, Let's start putting them in your backyard or next to your house, see how that works for you. And if you're okay with that, I'll let them come to my house. But until then, we are standing up for our rights. And honestly, I don't care if you have a D or an R behind your name. If you're not doing the right thing by this community, we're going to vote yourselves out of that doggone chair you're sitting in and get somebody in that's going to take care of the people of this community, not the homeless. Take care of who's here first. You want businesses to cooperate. You want property owners to cooperate. You want residents to cooperate. Well, you better have some assurances that are rock solid, because doggone it, I'm not going to stand here and lose my life over some knucklehead that is going to be trying to come and harm my family, my property, or anything I own. And I think people will get behind that and protect themselves in a heartbeat, because I will, and I'll stand up with my neighbors now to do that very thing, because I'm not going to have my wife, my children, and I have a disabled son, be frightened to go outside and to do anything in the community. That is not right to do. So thank you.
Wow, speaking in front of a lot of people. I would kind of echo those sentiments. I'm in the Meridian area. I'm one of those households that lives about a mile away from this encampment. It seems odd that we would pick a location that you mentioned that doesn't have a lot of development, when considering that you just spent, what, $20 or $30 million of our taxpayer dollars to create a diverging diamond switchback, yada, 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 whatever you want to call it. And, you know, I think the developers up in Bellevue and Seattle that own the property down there and have this 5 to 10 year vision of what this gateway to Lacey looks like probably aren't going to be very happy when there's a bunch of homeless people camped out in this supposed revitalized area. And, you know, it's really odd. You know, I echo the sentiment that if somebody tries to break into my house, I pity that person. But, you know, I want to say that if you're going to pick an area, don't pick an area that is the shining beacon of what this city of Lacey can be. Pick an area that's already been developed, not a place that is being developed. It's just a black eye on the whole community. But like you said, I mean, if it happens, I guess the voters will take it to the ballot box and find out what happens. So we'll see.
So I'm a public servant too. I serve with the Tacoma Fire Department in a position of a lieutenant. I come from an engine where we average about 4,500 calls a year. And so we're quite a busy engine. I've served in the most demographically lower income areas in the city of Tacoma. And these are great plans. We've had great plans in the city of Tacoma. And when I started 25 plus years ago, we had a handle on the homeless crisis. And we just asked them to move. They're cooperative. At this point in time, they don't care, and we've lost control. So on a day-to-day basis, and I'm just saying food for thought with this plan that you have, on a day-to-day basis, I come upon homeless 2 or 3 times a day, and they're from another city. When you entitle, they will come. If you build it, they will come. And after a while, you cannot control. As far as the location, and if you have to have a location, I'm thinking not too far away, you have a recycling center down there. You have plenty of land. It's an area that's controlled. Maybe they can volunteer their time.
My name's Jewel. I'm a resident of Hawks Prairie. I'm going to tag on what he said out there just in case anybody's interested. All the property located around that area is owned by WIG Properties up in Bellevue. The project manager on that area is Dave Kruger, Kruger, and his phone number is 425-641-2044. I've called. Today was the first opportunity that I had to call up there. I've left a message for him. I'm curious to know exactly what they think about what's going on down here because, like they were talking about the gateway to Lacey, if you look at the proposed plan that's been out there for a few years, this is like a huge development that's going to be going in there. So the other question that I had, and I'm not familiar with who the construction company is that's doing a lot of the work, but I'm wondering how secure they feel about all their vehicles, all their heavy equipment that's out there. I mean, you know, a 6-8 foot fence, that's great. Where's the barbed wire across the top of it? Because I'm telling you right now, they're not going to not jump the fences. We know that's going to happen. You know, I'm wondering if WIG Properties is aware of any contamination issues that we might have out there. You know, we're talking about putting garbage dumpsters, but there was an area of probably, 6, 8, 10 inches between the curbing and the fencing. We're throwing needles back there. We're throwing excrement, whatever else they're doing out there. I brought it up at the last meeting that I was at. Why are we moving them farther away from the benefits? There's an area in Tumwater that's publicly owned by Thurston County. Why are we not moving them to that area so that they're closer to the benefits?
That number again.
Would you guys mind holding my posters? Would you mind? Thanks. Okay. Hi, my name is Crystal Birmingham, and I've been watching this for quite some time. I just want to share some of my thoughts. I timed it, so I'm only 30 seconds over the 3-minute mark. So, the reason homeless encampments have grown exponentially in our community and in the nation is because of the counterfeit of compassion, which closely resembles enabling. It has crippled those who are homeless. The root of the problem is drug addiction. Thurston County has spent $40 million on the homeless since 2006. Since then, less than 2% transitioned into housing, and the homeless population has doubled. Homeless encampments have never worked. Of the 60 tents that left the Olympia encampment in 2019, only 2 sought services. This is the Olympia encampment. This is one. This is another encampment here in Thurston County. Of the 30 RVs in our Lacey encampment, 0 applied for a permit to stay. These images are for the encampments this year in our county, August 2019. The fine for littering is $50,000 to $5,000 in Lacey. If I threw a cup out of my car window, I would be fined. Tent encampments are environmentally disastrous. These are not the citizens that are suffering from economic job loss or unaffordable housing. To live in squalor like this, you have to have succumbed to addiction and no longer care. These are not diabetic syringes. They need our help to fight the fight, but not this way. The homeless stay homeless not because of the lack of social services, compassion, or housing. They won't or can't change their behavior pattern. They will always fight addiction. If the government takes responsibility for individuals' tasks, the program will fail. The individual must use their choices to change. The government has a collective obligation to ensure the safety of all residents, but must not consistently enable those in crisis. They need our help to fight the fight of addiction, not to give in to it. Low barrier, no rules, no sobriety. Handing out needles will warrant failure every time. A council member said that they will be judged on how they treat the most vulnerable in society. I want to highlight harboring fugitives, lawbreakers, or those who are publicly defecating and urinating in our areas have brought unprecedented living conditions in other cities that have not been seen since the Middle Ages. Typhoid fever, cholera, parasites, bubonic plague, tuberculosis, and theft. We, the public, are the most vulnerable. Thurston County Points and Time Survey has little merit and does not gather the right information. The data is extremely unreliable, and you must fix the way you conduct your survey to ensure you are targeting the right problem. If shelter beds are constantly at capacity, there is a problem. If a system is working, homelessness should be going down, not up. We do not want tent encampments in Lacey ever. The ordinance must be taking out. The ordinance must take out the tent option in the RV car ordinance, which must be kept in the back of City Hall. City Hall has already the physical resources, and it also has the police station moments away. So these ordinances are what I am saying. So the last one. Prohibit the use of alcohol, illegal drugs, and marijuana on any city-sponsored site. Must have ID or fingerprinting what they addressed. on-site, not just church-sponsored emergency sites, and ordinances must contain a provision for search for any illegal or harmful substances or weapons, just as patrons at airports and theme parks have to be checked. I'm advocating for common access points where help can truly be rendered through social services, and an information portal with a list of nonprofit government services that are available. If you give them anything, give them a job application, not clean needles. Give them a resume builder and experience, not a tent where they can shoot up in. Give them a timeline and a pathway to self-reliance. Use the tools we already have in place. Thank you.
Most of everyone's thoughts have been shared, but I wanted to add on to the site location. It seems that this interchange is the most expensive land in Lacey with this new interchange for retail. So, I mean, if you think about the casino on the other side sold to millions and millions and millions of dollars to Chick-fil-A and Taco Bell over there. So that land, if you allow it to be built in retail, what would come in there, the tax dollars that would pay for it, would pay for so much more services for the homeless somewhere else. I mean, it just seems like the choice that you're choosing. Yes, I do live in Meridian campus, but it seems like that location, you're missing your retail opportunity to get your tax dollars to have it for other places. It would go much farther.
Hi, everybody. I, too, am a resident of the Meridian campus area. I just want to echo a few things that I heard. And I know that one concern that's always been brought up on the other side, people say that, well, we need something for these people because they don't want, and they don't want to be into a program. They don't want, I want to say, that's my brother, my oldest brother. He's 50 years old. He's been in and out of different programs, and he actually told us, we disconnected him from about 3 to 6 months. Got a hold of him, and he said, I just want to live this way. I just want to live homeless. This is what I want to do. He moved from Florida because he heard there's a good program there. They take care of him. He's able to do his drugs or whatever there. Then he moved to California, different places in California, because he found it be easier for him as well there too. I want to say my brother right now has been in a program. He found a program that he actually enjoys, and he's been in there for 6 months sober. I talked to him on the phone recently, and he sounds the best I've heard him in 25 years. So I say that money that we need to use be put into a proper program. I know there's other programs out there, sure, that might not be good enough for them, might not be something that they want to do, but if we find that right program for them, my brother is an example that he will stay, and he will make it through that. They will make it through that if we put the money in the right program.
Hello. I'm a fairly new resident in the Hawkesbury area, and I will make 2 points. I have had the opportunity to live in several major cities where homelessness is a problem. This is the only area where homelessness is frightening to me. My husband and I walked through Seattle this past weekend, and I would have been mortified if my 13-year-old had been with me. We lived in DC, where gentrification has caused a lot of homelessness. The homeless people are forced out into the suburbs where there's more free land. And those homeless people, like this young man brought the point, are entitled. They don't move from the sidewalks when you tell them to move. They don't take advantage of programs because it takes away the rights that they feel like they're entitled to do drugs, to live on the sidewalks. The most frightening thing to me as a healthcare provider, I walked past a pair of dirty underwear with feces on them. I do not want to live in that community. Everywhere that I've lived, folks that build their own communities, they build their own wealth, they build their own neighborhoods, take pride in the places that they live. If we're gonna allow the folks to live in this community, we should make them build where they're gonna live. We should not be giving them land to waste, land to just do whatever they want to with. Chick-fil-A, I would love to see a Chick-fil-A here, and the interchange where we are talking about putting folks as a prime location for restaurants and retail establishments. So why aren't we trying to bring businesses into the community to bring in taxes, to bring in revenue, to bring in jobs? Why are we wasting this valuable land on folks who aren't an asset to our community?
Hello, my fellow Laceyonians. That's what I call us. I don't know what we really are. So I want to talk a little bit about the enabling. I wanted to frame, everyone to kind of frame it in two categories: collective tasks versus individual tasks, and why government programs fail. You know, policing, that is a collective task. It's a responsibility of government. I cannot go police as an individual the city of Lacey and accomplish that task. So the focus of government needs to be collective tasks, not individual tasks. So just a quick show of hands in here, how many of my fellow Laceyonians have housed a family member, a relative, a friend in the last couple of years and assisted them with their housing needs, right? So we as a community, we're already doing what needs to be done. Anytime government seeks to accomplish an individual task for someone, they're enabling them. It's just like for lack of a better term, a spoiled child. Why would I do it for myself if you're gonna do it for me? These programs always fail because they're individual tasks. How many of us have fed ourselves or fed someone else in the last day? All of our hands should be up, right? Okay, so the individual tasks versus collective tasks, government programs fail for that reason.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bernice Whitley, and I also work in Tacoma. I work for Tacoma Public Schools. During my time there, I have spent some time looking into the I-5 corridor with traffic in. My concern is with everybody else, that everything that has been said, but we also have to consider there is a high school and a middle school around this very location. We need to be very, very mindful. The high school and the middle school are within less than a mile and a half from this location. And we have to be, these are our kids. This is the future of Lacey. And if anything else, we have to take that into accountability, because I know we're talking about this being an evening thing. It will be a daytime thing. They will be on our streets during the daytime when kids are in school, when kids are walking home to school and walking to school and from school. That's all I have to say.
Good evening, everybody. I also live in the Meridian campus area. I've been following the story like a lot of you folks for quite a while now, and it was only a couple of months ago the good chief here spoke pretty bluntly about the issues with enabling these folks. And it seems like now we're just compounding it even more. I don't really understand that. You spoke specifically about the problems that happen when you give these folks food, you give them money, it just continues the cycle and continues the cycle. And by allowing a camp like this to go in, it's really just making it even easier for them. It's not helping them, in my opinion. I hope a lot of you other folks have that opinion as well. Thank you.
Hey, good evening. First of all, I don't want to cut on you guys too much. I'm new to the area. I just retired from 31 years in the military with NSW. I've fought a long time overseas, and I don't intend to retire here to fight off homeless people. Okay, I agree with everybody. I live in Meridian campus. I have no problems with you guys moving it Tumwater or somewhere else. Don't do it here. I retired here for one purpose, and that was because the people here are really good. They're really nice, and it's not Seattle. It's not Tacoma. This is a community, and we need to keep it like that. We don't need outsiders coming in with their bad habits or their, issues, bringing them to our community, hurting our children, hurting other family members, or stealing. I mean, we've had homeless people break into the houses at Meridian campus, So I just want to say I'm against it, and I think it's a bad idea, and I'm hoping everybody else feels the same.
Hi, my name is Holly Hunter, and I'm a clinical psychologist with more than 15 years of experience. And I can tell you from my practice, I never work harder at my patients' well-being than they themselves are willing to work. Not able to work, willing to work. Right? So the solution proposed here is not a solution. These types of homeless places are associated with higher crime, higher drug use, higher rates of serious infections like MRSA, and higher rates of gender-based violence. Warehousing homeless people does not help them. It causes harm. It also harms the homeowners by reducing property values and increasing risks, lowering safety. I cannot support any measure that results in harm being done to those who own homes and those who don't. This is not a win for anybody.
I live in Edgewater, and there is a huge wooded area right across the street. And there's a camp, I don't know if it's a camp or what, but there's a lot of homeless living in the woods there. And I personally have had my vehicle broken into. My neighbor's had her house broken into. And there's a lot of people right on Columbia Way that have constantly had their houses or cars broken into. If you're on next door, if you get next door, you hear it all the time, you see it all the time. When my car was broken into and I called Lacey, they just told me, well, go online and report it. So basically, the law enforcement didn't even bother to come out. So if these homeless know this and feel entitled, they know that Lacey PD is not going to do anything about it, which continues to let them break into our vehicles and take whatever they want, because Lacey PD is not even going to bother to come out. They're just going to tell you, write it on the computer. And crime continues to rise. My 16-year-old daughter, she's just turned 16, but 15, if she wants to go to the mailbox at night, I make her stay on her phone. And she's 15, she should be able to walk to the mailbox by herself. And I make her stay on the phone with me, just because I'm afraid for her to walk down to the mailbox by herself.
Hi, my name is Leslie. I'm from Jubilee. I know some of you from next door, and I'm so glad you're all here. Thank you for coming. I talked to the Commissioner, John Hutchings, today about the Thurston County Commissioner for this area, about this issue. He was very clear that Lacey is on its own. He said he will talk to us in future about a camp that we're all worried about that we'll talk about in the future. But he will not talk to us about Lacey. He won't attend these meetings because Lacey has nothing to do with Thurston County when it comes to certain things. I think it's money. When I talk to the people in Lacey, why are we not providing mental health treatment? Why are we not providing detox and rehab? And I'm talking live-in facilities until people are well enough to function. Most of these folks are either drug addicts, drunks, or mentally ill. The ones that were families and really in bad shape after the recession have had 10 years to recuperate, and for the most part, they have. So a lot of these folks just don't want help. We need to have the help, and then we need to tell them, you take the help, or the police will be watching you. If you commit a crime, you go to jail. Now, it seems that that's agreed upon here, and that's wonderful, but we have one policeman in charge of all the homeless. Okay, we have one code enforcer for trees. I mean, good heavens. When I talk to Lacey about why on earth we can't put the money into what will work, instead of throwing money away year after year after year on what never worked anywhere else, that's right. And so what I keep hearing, oh, we don't have enough money, we don't have enough money. I think we need to start pressuring Thurston County to get involved. I think we need to pressure the state to get involved. This is a regional and statewide issue. Just because Lacey supposedly doesn't have the money to provide the facilities that these folks need to live in until they're well, doesn't mean we shouldn't get them. This is a wealthy state. Let's demand it. Thanks.
Hi, folks. My name's Oscar Jimenez. I'm the president of the Homeowners Association for Classic Heights. I represent 100 homes. Median home price in Thurston County is $350,000 at the end of September. These people have worked all their lives to achieve this type of lifestyle that they have, the schooling, everything, the fishing, the new launch, everything going down Meridian. We're right off of Meridian. I also work with the crime prevention in our development. Since 2007, we've been chasing homeless people out of our bushes to the point that we had to pay to have all our bushes cut out on the bottom so we could see underneath them, because they were taking lawn chairs, putting them together, putting a board in between them, going in people's backyards and taking their cushions and using them for a mattress, and then throwing a tarp over through the trees, and they have themselves a little lean-to to have a nice, comfortable evening. Now, law enforcement, I have to thank them because they do a great job, but it's an overwhelming issue. I'd walk the dog on a frequent basis, and I'm up early in the morning. I've found mail stuffed in our bushes out in the front, and I went and pulled the mail out, called the police. They came, collected the mail. Turned out that the mail was from Meridian Acres. So we started watching our common areas. So we're finding people, bottles with the caps that are the security caps from Safeway on the cap still, but the bottle empty in our bushes. So we started to look at that, and we cleaned that out so we could see in there. We had to replace our mailboxes so we could have secured mailboxes, and we put lights with motion detectors on it at night and cameras. That's a protection against what's occurring. They're looking for anything they can get, and they're in our development at night. Your measurements that you have from that location to the locations of the homes are wrong, because these people do not drive down those roads. You have road distances. As the eagle flies, these people are walking through the bushes, walking through backyards. We had to authorize a family dwelling. We don't allow chain link in our development, but we had to put up a chain link fence because they were coming in through an access point off of 31st. Once they came through there, they were in our development, and they were going through everything. We're right next to a development called White Fir. White Fir had people coming through just at night after 9 o'clock p.m. just trying to open front doors. That's a dangerous situation. I'll recommend you, and I thank you for coming here, but make a voice. If there's a Me Too movement, there's got to be a Not Here movement, because if you don't do it, something's going to happen here. Thank you.
I just wanted to say that I grew up in Lacey. I was born and raised here, and I moved away, and I lived in Memphis, Tennessee for 13 years, and I came back here absolutely appalled at the homeless situation. I lived in a city of 650,000 people, and I didn't see something this bad. I just couldn't believe it, that this would happen to my town that I grew up in, that I love so much, and it was just appalling to me. I never saw anything like it in Memphis, so I really want that to change.
Oh, thank you very much. My name's Graham Berry. I just wanted to say something. We were in Olympia 2 weeks ago, and it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we figured we'd go to wander around the shops. My wife doesn't get around very well. There were around 25 kids, young men from 18 to probably 25, blocking the sidewalk, just hanging out. And that's what I see. It's like a collection of kids. There was a person sleeping on the sidewalk right next to the bookstore, Orca Books. My wife got in touch with the council there. I know it's Olympia Council, but they said their hands were tied. There was nothing they could do about it, the situation. So, although this is just a 12-hour permitted site, what worries me is that that's the way it's going to start. But it's not the way it's going to end. Because what worries me is that we'll be calling up our one police officer. By the way, police do a great job, but one policeman can only do so much. And we're going to get the calls that their hands are tied, there's nothing they can do about it. The police, I think, are getting tired of the fact, in Seattle particularly, that their hands are tied. They can't do anything. They put him into jail, throw him into jail one night, and they come back out in the streets. That's not fair to the person that's drug addicted or homeless. It's not fair. They need to go into a rehab situation. Spend some money on getting some rehab sorted out here. You've got to do the harsh things. Being kind and thinking, well, I'm going to be humane and take care of the homeless people. You know, it's obviously we know it's not all homeless. It's all been put into the one umbrella. So anyway, that's my thoughts on it, and I'm going to sit down. And thank you.
My name is Sarah Carpenter. My husband and I own Meridian Campus Family Dental in the Hawks Prairie area. We also own 2 homes in the Meridian Campus neighborhood. And all of my family has moved here from Utah because we felt a strong connection to this community. We really loved this area. I've been here for 6 years now. And I avoid Seattle, I avoid Olympia because I'm terrified of all of these drugs and all of the problems that are happening with all of these homeless, the filth and the problems that there is, and I can't avoid this neighborhood. I can't avoid that interchange because this is where my business is, this is where my home is, this is where my family lives. My sister-in-law lives in those apartments. She pays over $1,000 to live in a studio apartment that she struggles to make ends meet to stay there, to be supporting herself, and now she's gonna have to worry that, you know, it's already being broken into, and it's a gated community, and they're doing everything they can to keep it safe, but I feel like it's not fair to us as taxpayers. It's not fair to us as citizens of this community to have to deal with this issue because of choices that they've made to do this drug, to have this addiction, to have this problem, that I don't think that it should go in this location. I don't think that it should move from this area at City Hall. It seems like you have everything that you need right here. It's close to the police station, has security cameras, it has all the things that they already need. And I'm just very concerned for all of the things that it will bring to our neighborhood. Part of our mission statement for our business is to make this community a better place to live and raise a family. And I feel like having that encampment there and the things that it's going to bring closer to the schools, all the drugs, all those problems, is just something that I'm terrified of seeing and that I want to strongly oppose and do anything I can to keep that from happening.
Hello and good evening. First of all, thanks to the city planner, Mr. Spence, and then also to the city council members and Mayor Ryder for taking on this issue. I'm also a public servant. I spent 22 years active Army. I spent 5 years, 5 deployments in that time, active service. I spent 5 years in state government. I'm currently employed by the Federal Emergency Management Agency. So thank you to all the public servants and our government staff. So I just want to add, in case I'm missing something, I think your presentation was pretty vague and it lacks a lot of transparency. So here's some things that I want to point out that I think that it misses. No identified sponsor. Whose idea was this? Doesn't provide the background on the actual problem. Where's the needs assessment? No spend plan. What's this going to cost? What taxes are going to get raised to enforce this and pay for it? No transparent budget. No idea what kind of taxes we're going to have to pay in addition to having this site enforced and paid for. No goals and objectives. We're talking simple business, project management stuff here. No goals and objectives. What's the exit strategy? Isn't this supposed to be a thoroughfare for all of that new residential area, or excuse me, commercial area that's supposed to be put along that street? No identification, no identified alternatives. What is the alternative here? No identification of rules and standards of conduct and who's going to implement those standards of conduct. No plan to enforce this. No maintenance plan, i.e. the cleanliness and the appearance of this area. Where's the environmental study? Doesn't the any kind of RV park have to do some kind of environmental study in case there's some kind of mishap with the RVs that are parked there? And lastly, please don't take this as an indictment, but your slide didn't show the distance from this site to your house.
My name is Peggy Madsen. This is the brochure that was on the table out here that is provided by the North Thurston School Districts with information for services available for homeless children and youth. This exact same type of a flyer needs to be produced by the city, listing every single RV camp, every campground that has RV spaces available. Whether or not they're available that night is not the issue. That are provided, that contain dump sites, that contain showers, that contain actual bathrooms, and that needs to be handed out to every single person that is living in a car or in an RV. And their information needs to be recorded, and a database needs to be set up to contain that information by the police department, so that when we do face any kind of a challenge, when they are cited or arrested for being in violation of the parking ordinance, we have proof that we have provided the information to them for other resources. The other issue I want to bring up is that of the fiscal irresponsibility of paying one damn dime to make that Main Street an interim solution. We already have an interim solution. It is right here in City Hall. It's been brought up by several people. There's plenty of parking spaces, and there is absolutely no additional service that will be provided out at the Main Street location, other than out of sight, out of mind for the city council. And I understand that there's an effort to brand Midtown. Go for it. That's awesome. This site right here is perfect. It is not close to anything. It is a little bit secluded in terms of sightline. It backs up on the dang freeway, for crying out loud. And the other thing is, it's close right here to City Hall, where there should be a portal for information for services for those individuals. We cannot and we should not have low barrier anything. There's plenty of services available in this region. They're high barrier, or they're any barrier. Okay, you have to sit and listen to a religious presentation by a religious organization that is hosting services for you. You damn well better sit through it. And you better not complain that, oh, there's no services available. They're available. You just don't want to avail yourself of them with the criteria required. Well, as taxpayers, we have a right to set criteria.
I just want to point something out about your presentation. Chief, I appreciate your service and the gentlemen that work for you and the ladies that work for you. You mentioned that you placed there's an ordinance on this parking lot out here, and that only 2 people attempted to apply for it, and both at the end of the day chose to walk away. You're saying that this parking on Main Street is going to be through a criteria, licensing, registration. Those same individuals that didn't come for the parking lot over here are not going to come for that parking lot over there. This is not a solution to the problem. This is not even a Band-Aid to the problem. You've tried this solution on this parking lot where they have resources at the library and City Hall to put them into the middle of nowhere. They're not going to do it there either. If they do choose it there, they're going to do it under the guise of darkness or under the guise of getting around the system, because they know that they have some kind of protection there as far as the latrines and wash racks get cleaned up. But we're not providing the key necessity services for individuals to better themselves or to get themselves healthy with simple latrines or shower trailers. I think a solution here, if we maintain the location they've been using for years, we added a trailer that is maintained for showering and laundry facilities, you're giving them a hand up, not a hand out, and you're providing them a cleanliness area where they can provide for themselves to go get employment, and provide themselves with the pride in itself to go for a job interview.
My name is Tom Pote. I live in Hawks Prairie. I'm a retired police officer. I know homelessness. I know antisocial behavior. I know criminal behavior. And I think there's been so many fine words spoken here tonight. I agree with everything that's been said. The one thing that hasn't been said, Lacey could do no better than to call Como News, talk to Eric Johnson. They would love to come down here, I would wager, and help you resolve the problem. The problem is not homelessness, that's a condition. The problem are what everybody has already described, the antisocial behavior, the criminal behavior, the drug addiction, mental illness. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kate Berry, and I am delighted to see so many people here because public engagement in this process is critical to us finding solutions. I'm glad people are expressing their concerns, and we've had some really wonderful suggestions on how this can be done better. I want to share with you, and I won't name the name, but I received an email, some of you saw it already, from a member of council here 2 days ago that did a few things. First of all, raised my blood pressure, but more importantly, suggested that they were sick and tired of the pushback from our community. And that angered me because I think the voice of the people that are being served by this council is critical to this city continuing to be a great place to live, to work, to own businesses, to raise children. And I don't want to see anybody be quieted, intimidated to not speaking up because there is a concern by a member of council that they don't want any more pushback. In fact, in that letter, I was accused of throwing them under the bus. And I will tell you that I don't believe that any comments that I've made, any letters that I've written, any statements that I have made have been intended to throw anybody under the bus. What they've been meant to do is to raise our concerns. And they're my concerns, they're your concerns. They're concerns of people who are uncomfortable speaking up. And while I don't really relish this platform that I found myself on, I am taking on the task of speaking for those who are uncomfortable speaking for themselves. I want to say to everyone here, council particularly, how did we get here? How did this happen? How did you go from meetings where 5 people on a good day show up to a council meeting and 100 people show up to this room tonight? I have to think that there's a failure someplace. When it takes something like this, moving into our community, making decisions for our community without consulting us, without talking to us, without informing us, I think that there's a major problem there. Feedback and pushback to the person who wrote the 30 seconds, I've got to go fast. Feedback and pushback by residents of the community are not necessarily negative. In fact, some of our greatest near disasters have been caused by the stifling of dissent. Think about the Bay of Pigs. Dissent or pushback is necessary to achieving the best possible solutions to our problems. So how do we capture the energy and creativity of dissent and turn it into positive action? Listen to us. And I think you've heard quite a lot tonight.
Hello, my name is Brian. I'm here to stand with my neighbors to say this proposal is completely unacceptable. It's obviously not done with the consent of the people, and it's not that you're getting pushback on anything. You're just being told this is how we want our city run, and that is the job of an elected official is to do what the citizens want. There is obviously no practical benefit to putting it over there, except, as mentioned, out of sight, out of mind. It's farther away from services. It's farther away from the police office, from the library. It's also on gravel and other mixed surfaces. Good luck trying to get that clean, whether through chemical spills or needles or any other concerns. It's a objectively worse site in every way. I recognize that having a child serving location at the library is not great in terms of proximity, but also, which has been left off the discussion so far, the proposed site on Main Street is right across the street from a kid's gym. And as a parent and as a resident, I find that extremely objectionable. And I can't promise there is a good site in our city for this, but it is most definitely none of the options that have been proposed.
Hello, my name is Ben Oramus. I live in Thurston County, Nisqually Highlands. And bottom line, if Lacey doesn't get involved in comparison to Olympia and other areas, regardless, they're going to end up in your backyards hiding. And bottom line, if you look around, there's a lot of baby boomers here that don't want to deal with anything. That's the reason they're here. They have time. Most younger families are dealing with their kids today. They don't have the ability to show up and voice their complaints or their support. And bottom line, I live closer to most of you guys than this mitigation site. They're welcome in my backyard, and I'm happy to open up. I have plenty of space for most of the tents, and they're welcome in my backyard. And guess what? They might come and knock on your door and ask for breakfast or coffee. If I run out of coffee, they might ask for help. But to turn your backs on people, and I guarantee most of these people are Christians. I'm not, but most of these people are probably Christians. And to turn your back on people, who are you serving? You're serving yourself, not the people that need help. And yes, we can't serve everybody. We can't solve all the problems. But you guys can do better.
We are doing better. And I'll tell you what, I'll give that guy or that gal a cup of coffee as long as they don't come and steal it from me first. I never said they should steal.
Please.
They steal for everybody here.
Hey guys, please.
Hi, my name is Anna. I feel like I'm a little unique because I moved to the area 2 years ago. I grew up in Yelm. My boyfriend and I bought a house in Gateway, which our house is at the very bottom, at the very end of the cul-de-sac, and I've got my car broken into twice. Now, I'm not saying that all homeless people are gonna break into cars and stuff, but another reason is that I just invested a lot more than I think I should have already, but I am opening a bar right on that first roundabout in that same area, right across from 7-Eleven. One of the reasons I chose that area is because of how up and coming it is. Yes, it doesn't have very much to it right now, but that's the hope that eventually it will grow to a beautiful part of Lacey, which is also the reason that we bought our house, because we felt it was gonna be this amazing area. And now, I'm not very familiar with all the homeless encampments and everything, but I do know that when people hear that, they just think negative thoughts for the most part. So if I'm telling family members or friends, oh, come visit my restaurant, and it's right next to the homeless encampment, it doesn't sound great. So I guess one of the reasons I'm here, and I don't know if it's a question or not, but I wanted to know, you've already showed us a video of like how much you've already invested into it. What's gonna happen now? Like, is there a chance for us to stop it, or what do we do as people of the community to say we don't want it here? I don't know. I mean, I know we're here to talk about it, but I would like to hear from you guys what our options are as well.
I'll try to keep it short. My name is Roland Salazar, and I'm very heartened by a lot of the responses here in the community. As we live in a republic, and your constituents are clearly voicing that they do not want this here. And you know, I've worked all my life. I'm a young man. I just bought my first house there in Meridian campus, and it saddens me to see kind of like all the trash that's accumulating. When I get off of work, I have a very long schedule. I'll park on the side and I'll go and pick up trash because I just see it accumulating. And so I can't see how this is going to contribute in any way. Also, too, like the young lady had noted, there's multiple businesses there, and so I can't imagine this is going to be good for any of the new businesses that are sprouting up. So But yeah, I just wanted to voice my concern and how I know you guys are all good-hearted people, and I know that you're trying to do the best thing, but this is clearly not what your constituents want, so I would ask you guys not to do this, please.
Hello, my name is Shannon Nugent. I live in Thurston County. I am not a resident of Lacey. We own a business up in Tacoma. The Tacoma Police Department is a block away. If you encourage this instead of discourage it, you're going to get the crime. They set up their encampments behind businesses specifically for the convenience. We had 2 cars stolen yesterday. Broke through the gates. Oh well, a block away from the Tacoma Police Department. Don't let this happen.
I'm Carol Hayes, and I live in Jubilee, and I moved here 13 months ago and was rather dismayed to see the encampment that was on Meridian. And thank you, Police Department. You got rid of that. That was great. And I walk all the time, 4 or 5 miles a day. And Jubilee is developing 2 plats that's part of Jubilee, but down toward the water. I went down there with 2 friends about a month ago, and we came upon a homeless person that had set up, parked their car on the street, had the tent out, had the food, the music, the guitar, everything. And we called when we got back, and a policeman did come, but there's only 1 policeman. And now I walked there a couple days ago, and there were 2 in the woods, which is just between the bottom of Jubilee and the water, which maybe is 2 football fields at best. And it's kind of frightening that I can't go for a walk in my new nice home environment and go on the streets and not expect to run into homeless people. So I just hope you're not going to come out and have one on that main street, because you're just, where are they gonna go when they'll be familiar with that area as if they aren't already. So thank you. What?
So I'm one of that younger generation. I'm a single mom, and I got the email today, and I came out to be here. I have lived in Meridian for 6 years. I'm a homeowner. I have police and fire department that live up and down my street, as well as active duty and retired military, and I even have some local representatives as well. And we have started to have break-ins of vehicles, walk-ins into homes, stealing of our mail, and my daughter's 4. You know, do I have to worry this Halloween about walking out and around in the dark with my child? I'd like to think not. I never had to in the past. My family lives in Hawaii, and if anybody has ever been to Hawaii, you know they have a horrible homeless problem out there as well. And the majority of the issue is cost of living and drugs. I mean, that's it. And it comes with violence, because the drugs bring the violence and people are trying to steal from each other. I think this is a horrible place to put it. I think it's a horrible idea to put it anywhere. And we're not trying to not help the homeless. I just don't think this is the right option. Spend our money elsewhere where we can actually help these people instead of just putting them somewhere. Do something.
Now we're at the Q&A period, and we'll still have mics for people to ask specific questions. Let me maybe clear the air on a couple things. I guess if in terms of how do we get here, I mean, I'll take responsibility for that. Too often, government is criticized for not acting fast enough, and I freely admit that we got ahead of this because there's been a lot of pressure on what are we doing. We're getting complaints and calls about there are RVs in our neighborhoods, do something about that. So we did. Council actually adopted a new ordinance that says you can't have an RV parked in your neighborhood for more than 4 hours. It used to be 24 hours. And then we play the games about, well, you move it 5 feet and then the new 24-hour starts again. So that was an attempt to respond to the community concerns about what's going on. So in terms of the cost, it's costing about $4,000 to put that resource into play. Again, we're trying to provide a resource so we can respond to the issues in the community. I would agree with you, it's an interim solution, but we're also trying to react to the concerns from the community about unwanted RVs, what's going on here. And again, I appreciate everyone's comments about, this site, and this is the best site. We have the same concerns from St. Martin's University. You have young adults there. We've had the same concerns about other constituents saying this is a bad location too. That being said, I guess the one good thing is that everyone here is agreeing that we care about this community and we want to do the right thing. So I think that's the one positive I think we should think about today. But it is good to hear your comments. Again, I think there's some more Q&A that we need to have, but I just want to make that statement. So $4,000, that is paying for fencing, that's paying for porta potty, that's paying for the security cameras. That's a monthly cost. Yeah, right. So again, to be clear, and if we're going to set up a site as a resource, we need to have things, what we've heard loud and clear, safety and security. So cameras is part of that. Cameras is part of that. Worried about sanitation and public health. That was also built in, so that's where that cost is being derived from. I understand that in terms of being concerned about or criticize it, but again, we're trying to respond to that issue too. Well, again, to be clear, right now City Hall we're permitting in place at City Hall. We were looking to have Main Street as a potential site for that. But so again, that's how we got to this place. I just wanted to answer that question.
I'm more than happy to answer a couple more questions. And my name is Andy Ryder. I'm the mayor of Lacey, and this is an issue that everyone on this council cares deeply about. Let's back up to May. Prior to May, we didn't have really any sort of RV problems or anything in the city. Homelessness, was just sort of starting you'd see more and more of it. But it was in early May where we had a couple RVs show up behind City Hall. And at that time, our police went out and asked me, can we help you? And they said, yeah, we're parking here at City Hall and we're not moving. And so, of course, we immediately found out about this, and we came in and talked to the city manager and our city attorney and said, what are we going to do about this? We can't have RVs sitting here at City Hall. This is not a good location for it. But at the time, we didn't have any other location, and even worse, we didn't have an ordinance on the books that prevents it. And so we tasked the city manager to try to start finding solutions for this problem. And now, and I agree, when we were first looking at what can we do, where's another location besides City Hall, there is not another good location, period. And we understand, I understand that. And so at first we were looking at a different location. It's like, well, okay, maybe we have some property out at Great Cuyo Park. There was an old farmhouse there. Maybe this could be a location where we could put some fencing and they could go there. In the meantime, we realized a lot of the issues that we were facing here was a parking issue. And we did not have a parking ordinance on the books either. And so it was proposed at that time, well, let's pass a parking ordinance that doesn't allow parking for RVs and trailers, which is what we were experiencing here, that those two RVs all of a sudden turned into, we had over 30 vehicles back here. It started off with 2. So let me finish. So it started off 2 and immediately grew, right? And one thing that we realized, if you don't address an issue, the issue gets worse. And we experienced that right here at City Hall. it started getting worse and worse and worse. And so we knew we had to address it. And so how we chose to address it is, okay, let's look at solutions here. Let's implement a parking ordinance that says you cannot park, if you're an RV or a trailer, you cannot park anywhere in the city of Lacey for longer than 4 hours. And the only way you could stay longer than 4 hours if you went through a permitted process. Once we tasked the city manager to come up with the rules to get that, what that permitted process would be. And of course, it took a little while to figure that out. And then once we passed our parking ordinance, the thought process is, well, maybe we should put this out at Main Street. And so that was the original thought process. Maybe we should put this out at Main Street. But I think what we realized is let's make sure this parking ordinance is gonna work, right? Let's make sure they have an ID. Let's make sure they don't have warrants. Let's make sure they can start being connected with social services. And so what we asked the city manager to do at that time is start implementing our parking ordinance right here at City Hall. And let's see if this is gonna work. And as it turned out, 2 people applied, 1 person didn't qualify, the other person didn't show up, and as you notice, there are no RVs or trailers behind City Hall any longer. You're right. And so the question, no, they can't be in your neighborhood because they can't be there for longer than 4 hours. Period. No. So that's exactly right. So unfortunately, those RVs and trailers ended up going out of Lacey. They moved out of, the RVs and trailers have moved out of Lacey. And so so the question is if the RVs and trailers have moved out of Lacey, why should we open up this place out on Main Street? And that's a good question. And I think there is some consensus where around maybe we shouldn't open up at Main Street, right? If we don't have any RVs and trailers here, if we open up at Main Street, if we don't have them here, why would they go out there? The problem that we're running into, though, is the 9th District Court decision. And that comes to absolutely. I totally agree with that. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I absolutely agree. And we're
was there a vote? Was there something valid put out to the community saying, hey, let's vote for this? I mean, what's this we? Yeah, you didn't ask us. Here we are now.
We are at this point, I have the exact same concerns as everyone does here. Everyone has the exact same concerns.
What you got is a bunch of angry people
And
that don't want this nonsense, and you're not giving the right answers. The answer is, we're not gonna let them come. And you're the one that wrote the letter about the pushback. Yeah.
And because we are trying to do our best to come up with solutions. We honestly are. We care. We honestly care.
Yeah, heat's on, brother.
I hear you. I hear everyone. I hear everyone here. I hear everyone here. I honestly do. And we're. You live in Meridian? No, I live 2 blocks from here. Well, maybe you should live in Meridian. No one's moved. No one has moved. No one has moved.
Staples across the street, the Costco. They're parked in the hotel parking lot. They're parked at the Hawks Prairie restaurant with their dilapidated trailers. Don't tell me they left town. They didn't. They moved north waiting for you to open up your area. That's what they're doing. And you know, we haven't even gotten to the part about the security. The last meeting that I came to, we were gonna have a security guard come through and lock the gates, is that correct? We're locking them in for the night, right? 7 to 7, we're locking them in. You're closing the gate. And they're in there free to do what they want to do for 12 hours. But you're not up in our area. So you can't sit there and say they've left the area. You don't know that. And honestly, my husband talked to a Lacey police officer. I live right on Willamette. I'm up at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, sitting on my back patio, watching them walking down the street with their backpacks after they got done stealing. I live across the street from the dentist. I live across the street from the daycare center where they're hopping fences and crapping in the back. How's that working? How about the junior high across the street? They are already there in our area, but you're gonna bring more. You just said there were 2 out here, but you know, it's called word of mouth. One says come, they will come. And who's gonna be there to police those RVs at night when you say, oh, we're gonna check everybody's ID that's in that motorhome? Do they do that when they come across the border also? And I hate to throw that out there, but I'm going to. Because we all know that people illegally sit in the bathrooms in an RV, can lift the seat in the RV, can hide somewhere. How are you checking that? How?
So may I say just one little small thing? And I was glad a few of you said, what about it being in your backyard? And what many of you probably don't know, I've been in Lacey, well, he's born here, but I've actually lived in Lacey since 1966. And I live in back of Mountain View School, about a block and a half. Way back in, I'd like to say 2010, there was a group of a camp city that was moving 90 days each time around and being put up by different churches. And Lacey had the Lacey Community Church decided to hold it for that tent city. It's called Camp Quixote for 90 days. That it was on 19th Street. I'm on 21st. It was about a half a mile. Mountain View School was in between. And so it was about 40 tents. This church itself was a very small church, didn't have a lot of parishioners, but they took this thing on. And by the way, most of them were over 55 because it was an older church community. And Panorama, it was right next to, many of those people also helped volunteer to put this group together. Now, was I a little nervous? Well, yeah, I was a little nervous, but also I was interested, and I often drove down 19th to get down to Olympia. I never, ever, ever ran into any of those homeless people. It was so well run. And don't tell me why or how, I don't know that. I was going to volunteer, but something came up. My husband would walk to Starbucks over by Fred Meyer's and walk back. He never ran into a homeless person either. So I'm just saying that so many times a well-managed encampment could be, and I'm not talking tents here, what this was, can be better than just not doing anything. And I remember that St. Martin.
You guys had your chance. They sat and listened. Now, I have a lot of differences with this council on different topics, but I'm not here about that topic. So just listen to them for a change.
But the other issue, remember, is we're literally in the backyard of St. Martin's University with a bunch of students as well. It's not us, it's that too. But on the other hand, you have good points. So I'm listening and I want to come up with solutions.
Yeah. Can I ask the question? Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Eugene Kayan. Probably some of you guys know me. I'm the CEO of VAS Group, and we are a community management company. So we manage community associations. Most of our customers are located here in the City of Lacey, in the county, in Olympia, Tumwater. So we are a 100% local company. We have about 8,000 homes under management. And one of the communities we manage is Meridian Campus. So since the information about the plans about this encampment on Main Street came out, we received dozens and maybe even hundreds of emails and phone calls from the concerned homeowners asking us to get answers to their questions and to basically take some actions to prevent this from happening. So we selected a few questions, and just 7 questions, the most interesting questions we received. And I'd like to ask you, if you would bear with me. Those are very simple questions. Most of them are just yes or no. Require yes or no answer, okay? I believe it's very little for the 8,000 residents, so please bear with me. So question number 1 to the city members. Is the decision to establish this encampment on Main Street final, or it is not finalized yet? Yes or no?
Not finalized yet, no.
Okay, thank you. Okay, then it alleviates question number 2. So for how long does the city plan to have this encampment on Main Street?
Well, I just mentioned this, but I don't necessarily see Main Street being open. As I just mentioned, we implemented our parking ordinance right here, and all the RVs and trailers have left. And so if we don't have RVs and trailers violating our 4-hour parking limit, then I don't know why we would ever open up Main Street to our RVs and trailers.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, another question would be if, so the Main Street encampment is designed for homeless people who have cars or RVs, right? Why did the city choose this place in the heart of Lacey if these people can move larger distances using their vehicles and have a sleeping spot, if you want to give them such a spot, at the outskirts of the city, for example, not like in the center of the city? Does it make sense?
So, Scott, why did you think?
Yeah, I mean, people can move larger distances. So, for example, allocating a place somewhere like, outside of the city, or like at the edge of the city would make more more sense.
So looking for a city-owned public place, if we start going on a land parcel, those costs become incrementally greater. So we looked at that option. Now you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, which is really not acceptable either. So looking at a street system, it's already built, it's a built environment. That was the least cost alternative to deal with this interim solution. So that's why it was chosen. And again, the thought process was it'd have less impact to the adjacent property owners. I understand there's a disagreement with that, but again, looking through the entire city, that was the thought process.
Okay, and the last question, probably it's funny, but please, can we know who of the city council members and the city planning commissioners live in the Hawkesbury area, Meridian Campus or Jubilee or Edgewater or Gateway communities? Because some of the people are concerned that the place has been chosen to avoid putting them in the council members' backyard. Can you please raise hands so we can get back to those people and just tell them that they are wrong?
We do have one council member who lives out there, is Councilmember Stedman. He's on vacation. He's in Edgewater, and he's currently not here this evening. But we do have a planning commissioner that lives out there as well.
I just have a question. If we are not going to follow through with this, I'd just like to know if we could use the $4,000 a month it would take to run this program, and we'd take that $4,000 and use it to help the homeless that are already there and get the programs in place for them so they can move out, or get the programs so we can get them out of our neighborhoods that are already there, because we already have a problem now.
Yeah. Chief, can you answer that?
Yeah, thank you. And how many people live in Hawks Prairie? Hey, watch this. Watch this. And my wife's here too. We live in Hawks Prairie. I get it, okay? I get it. So I want to thank you all for being here, first of all. It's very, very important. I'm going to kill myself on this thing. It's very important to hear your voice on this. Regardless of where something is implemented, Main Street, anywhere else, my job is to keep you safe, period, right? My job is to keep you safe, and that's why we came up with a set of rules for this permitting process that really exceed anything else that's out there. You go look around in Thurston County and those things just don't exist. We took a lot of heat for those rules because I was insistent, and the council listened to me, the city manager listened to me, that we have to have a safe site or we just can't have a site at all. So that's how those rules came into play. So wherever that is, Main Street, in the back parking lot, wherever that is, first and foremost. The comments came up about talking to these folks and getting data and those types of things from one of my neighbors in the back. We do that every single day. Everybody that's out there we talk to, they're in a database, and right now, your police department is that bridge that works with social services and brings them to the folks that actually want and can use some help. And we've been successful in many cases. And yes, there are those service-resistant folks, and they're the most difficult to deal with. As a law enforcement officer, we can only utilize tools that are in the toolbox under the law. It's very frustrating at times. It has nothing to do with city council. It has to do with what the law allows us to do. When I got here 8 months ago, there were virtually no tools for us to engage the homeless population. Now there are. So we're able to do things. We do have problems up at Safeway. We do have problems up at Walmart. I go there all the time when I'm not working. I understand what those problems are. So anything that we can do under the law, we're going to do. And then for those people that need help and are acceptant to help, we will get them the help that they need. We'll be that. We're the ones that are out there 24 hours, 7 days a week. We're the only city entity that's out there 24 hours, 7 days a week. So we see it every day as well. But again, this is much more than just about Main Street. Much more than just about Main Street. And I'll also tell you this. I read Nextdoor every day too. I read it every day. I'm on there. I may not know who I am, but I'm on there. And a lot of the information, a lot of your concerns are real. A lot of your concerns are real. A lot of the information just is not true, and it gets spun up because people get really worried about things, and I get it. I get it. I tell my wife things all the time. Don't do this, don't do that, because I'm a cop and I'm suspicious of everybody, okay? But I can tell you up in the Northeast, and I'm getting off on a tangent here, you live in one of the safest areas in all of Thurston County, and I can show you that, okay? Right, that's my job to keep it that way, okay? So I get it. Now, as far as the allocation for money and those types of things, that is a whole other topic that is just, you know, we could be here for days talking about homeless services and how much things cost and where the resources are, et cetera. All we can do is utilize the tools that we have to make the community as safe as we possibly can. So whether or not the council or city management decides to open Main Street, close Main Street, whatever it is, I can promise you that we're going to use everything at our disposal. I live there too, probably a lot closer than most of you guys do, to make sure that it's safe. And by putting those plans in place, folks, those people are out there anyway. They're out there anyway. Now we know where they are, we know who they are, we know who's involved in services, what they're doing, and we have the ability under the law to take action if they're not abiding by that permit process, when before we didn't have the ability to do that.
Oh. Chief, could I ask a question here? You have the law that allows that 4 hours, right? The RV's there and isn't moving, okay, and a police officer up there, in the law itself, it says the police officer has the discretion to not give the person a ticket. Where's
Yes.
the teeth in that? What are
Well,
you going to do?
So let me give you an example. Come across a person that's driving from out of town. They get off the freeway. They stop in Lacey. They're on their way to Oregon. They broke down. It's going to be 8 hours till they can get a part. I'm probably not going to give that person a ticket. I'm just not. Okay? Now, somebody that's abusing the parking privilege, it's a great question. Yes. The city council has given us ability to enforce the law, and we have, and it's worked effectively. We had some folks in the back that did not want to move. They said, we're not moving. So we said, okay, we're going to cite you. They said, fine, cite us. We cited them. Then we told them, if you don't move, you could be towed. And they said, we're not moving. So we came back the next day and said, we really would like you to move and comply with the law. We don't want to tow anything. And we gave them the warning about towing. Tow truck showed up. They decided to move. Okay, so there is teeth there.
What tools are you missing that you need from us to pass this law?
Oh, boy.
We asked that same question. We asked that same question.
All these things that we need, and we've passed it through the law, so what else can we do?
We need
to help with you.
real easy one. We need the Supreme Court to overturn the Ninth Circuit Court's decision on Boise v. Martin.
So my name's Dave. I'm the city attorney. Ray Lee, so I'm probably closer than anybody in this room. When the Martin v. Boise comment came up from the mayor, and there was a lot of disgruntled reaction, like, why would we listen to that? Well, that's a Ninth Circuit court that we're beholden to, and they found that certain criminalizing homelessness in certain conditions is a violation of the Constitution, which was pointed out, which we the people are bound to support. Similarly, about 5 years ago, the Washington State Supreme Court found that it was unconstitutional to enforce anti-panhandling laws. And so there's obviously a link between the city's inability to enforce panhandling and this rise in the Northeast area of homeless. That is not within the council's control. Council can't do anything about that. Council is currently trying to come up with an ordinance to allow homeless sites, which Main Street is not. That's parking. That's extended parking. That is not related to homeless. That's not related to the enforcement of Boise. That's not a shelter, okay? Council is trying to come up with an ordinance to allow the city to create, or a nonprofit or a religious institution, somebody to create a site that can house homeless people so that we can enforce the law under Boise. Right now, if a bunch of homeless people, all the people that are in the woods up in your area, in my area, if they all decide to start camping on public property, we can't do anything about it. Nothing, okay? And without, shake your head, I mean, we could violate Martin v. Boise, which is a circuit, a Ninth Circuit decision, which I have emphatically recommended to council that they not do. It's my job, but there's real limitations, and council's, working within, the rules, the law, what we're recommending for them, and it's an extremely complicated situation, and there's obviously no easy answer. So,
I have a question back over here that's been waiting for a while. Just 1 second.
Hi, thank you for your time tonight. So if something, assumes maybe now it's not going to happen, maybe because we all showed up. But moving on. When and if something like this does have to happen, I asked last week, and I'll ask again, where are the dump stations for the RVs that you're going to allow to park there? You said you're going to have dumpsters and toilets, but where are the actual dump stations?
So, dumping's illegal, obviously, Ms. Geller. So we know that, and that's a concern of ours. The site where it is does not have a dump station. It has very clear camera control, so we can look at it at any time, and the officers can look at it at any time, and there's constant security going through that location. So if we find somebody dumping, there is a law on the books that we can enforce an anti-dumping ordinance. We can enforce the law and then evict the person from the site, and they won't get another permit.
Okay, thank you. When you said you're going to check IDs, so you're going to check IDs and then anybody will be allowed to stay there from any state, correct? Yes or no?
If they meet all the requirements, not just the IDs, but there's 4 requirements on there, but yes, that's correct.
Okay.
On a daily basis, that's just for that night if they meet the requirement.
Okay.
Keep in mind that one of those requirements is they must be getting services, which is the reason that all of those that were in the parking lot here left, is because they weren't getting services and didn't want to get services. So they have to be getting services to get a permit, which is why there's been no permits and why likely you're never going to see any RVs on the Main Street spot, and likely will wind up being closed down because there are no permits. There's no one there looking for a place to park.
So how do you?
Which is
Okay,
why it hasn't
I'm
gone
just going to
there.
keep speaking over everybody that keeps speaking. How are you going to know that they are having social services, that they are in a program? How will they show you proof of that? I don't understand.
Thank you for that question. I should have mentioned it before, Ms. Geller. That's a great question. So like I said, every single day, we're out there talking with these folks, right? And we have our CAC, Community Action Council, is right in our backyard. It's right up in Hawks Prairie. You guys probably know where that is. CAC does the resources for all the homeless services for Thurston County, and it's right here in our backyard. So we know who, because we're connected with them, we talk to them on a daily basis, who's getting services and who isn't. Is there an instance where somebody can say, yeah, I'm engaged in services, and we have to check it, so one night they'll stay there? It could happen, but we also know who the service providers, we also know who the services are, and then so we can ask some questions, and it's not too difficult to determine who those folks are that are getting services and who's those that aren't. In addition to that, the city is in about a month or so, we're in the background process now to have a service navigator that's going to be embedded in the police department, and their job is to be working with these folks on a day-to-day basis to free up your law enforcement officers to go out there and do enforcement. Bless you.
Okay, awesome. Okay, thank you very much.
We've got a question here, Rick.
Hi, my name is Ashley Delaney. My family and I live in Hawks Prairie. I just have a comment and a question. So my first comment is, for me, it was super helpful to read the ordinance itself. So maybe have it in the front so everybody can have it and reference it and can ask questions about it. And then secondly, I guess my question is on the actual ordinance. On the main points, the one that you have online, number 4, it says the ordinance authorizes a city manager to permit vehicles to park in excess of any time restrictions. It doesn't say 12 hours, and so I'm wondering, are you going to change that specifically? Because my concern is, yes, for the first year you'll have 12 hours, but then you'll say, well, according to the ordinance, the city manager can authorize the permits in excess of any amount of time.
No. So you're right, the current policy as written is 12 hours. The intention is not to go beyond 12 hours. Again, council holds me accountable. If that got beyond that, there would be, I think, concern about going beyond 12 hours, but that's been the primary discussion about the limitation over 4 hours.
But what I'm saying is it's not 12 hours in the ordinance. It's not specified 12 hours.
Correct, but it is in the temporary parking permit policy, which then limits to 12 hours. So the ordinance references the policy, and then the policy then resides. It's on our website, it's on our city clerk's webpage, and it outlines what that limitation is.
Thank you.
Why does the ordinance contain the language "and tense" in the emergency overnight parking section? That's my first question.
Rick?
I'll bring it back to you. I think the reference to the temporary overnight with the tents is in an entirely different ordinance. It's in the encampment ordinance, not the parking ordinance.
They're not being the parking.
Because the parking ordinance is related to recreational vehicles are not allowed to park on the public street for more than 4 hours. The temporary overnight site or draft ordinance, its amendment's been going through the process of the Planning Commission review and the council review. That contains a provision for temporary overnight sites that can include tents, and they would have to be it would have to be set up in a manner that go through a public notification meeting, advance notice, and it's something different than the public parking ordinance of Main Street.
I do believe that every single person in this room as a resident believed that that's what we were here about, was the emergency temporary overnight housing. It is not.
Not at all.
But for the RVs and the cars.
No,
So this site you're calling, because that's part of our problem. And I would like to really address the issue of this claim of pushback. Community engagement is not pushback. And community engagement includes a give and take. Every time we come to city council, it's not a give and take. We stand up, we speak in the public comment, and the city council sits there with blank faces. We never get any feedback. We never get the chance to have a give and take. You constantly use different terms to describe the same thing, so no one knows what you're talking about. That gives rise to exactly what we have here, anger and distrust. We want to trust you. I do believe that every one of you has the same concerns as we do. Absolutely. However, we are not getting the assurances in part because there's no transparency. This meeting itself was not put on the city's calendar until Monday, a holiday. So we would like to see more give and take. And we really need that in order to feel that we have any trust at all in you. Okay, it's not pushback. Civic engagement is not pushback. Please remove that from your vocabulary.
I appreciate it. And I know there is been a lot of confusion around this, which has been so very frustrating. It's been frustrating all the way around. I'm human just like everyone else, and we are trying to do the best we can with the limited tools that we have. Every tool our chief of police have asked us for, we have tried to give to him. We keep on getting referred to Olympia or Seattle. We are not those communities. We are Lacey, and we're trying to do things a little different, right? We try to listen to your concerns. It's our concerns too, and we're trying to make the best possible decisions for our entire community. I think that's why some of the confusion is on this. The Main Street does not have to do with our emergency housing ordinance. It has to do with our parking ordinance. It can only be set up under our parking ordinances because that's only parking right there. That is a street. And so that falls under our parking ordinance. And so that, I know there's some confusion around there, which is why we have this open meeting. We heard you, we listened to you, and that's why we're here to try to explain the difference between our emergency housing ordinance, which hasn't been passed yet, and our parking ordinance, which has been passed. And our camping ordinance, which we passed first, but we can't enforce unless we have a designated place for people to go. And that's Boise.
Thank you. Again, my name is Brian Cardoza. I live over in Campus Glen area. And I feel with relative certainty that most of you people have run for this office and to become council members to do the good of the city and the people that you represent. And when we see things in our backyard, for example, and we bring it to the attention of, and we have an expectation of safety and security in our neighborhoods and homes and stuff like that, we believe that you hear us until we feel like you don't hear us. And then you have this. And so this, I think, as you can see, is an outcry from the people in this community, myself included, and I'm very vocal about stuff, as you've already heard. So, but my thought, and it's kind of a two-part question for the city council members, is it the intention that, because everybody's talking about it's not our intention to do more than, or it's our intention to do this, but it ends up being that. So my question, and I think a lot of people have the same or similar feeling, is Do you want us just to hand over our tax money? Now it's no longer our money, it belongs to city government, and you want us just to sit idly by and be quiet and let you do what you do best and think you're representing us in the best interest of us? Because if that's the case, that's going to be a short haul from election to election if you're expecting to stay in the positions that you've spent a lot of money on and ran on and gave yourself platforms for in order to do the will of the people. So then that's one part of the question, and that's a yes or no. Do you want us to just be quiet and let you do what you do?
No.
Okay,
No.
that's why we're here.
Okay.
So
yeah.
that's part one of the question. The second part, and we've seen this, we watch news. So we see how Portland gets all out of control. Seattle has had their issues. LA, for crying out loud, oh my gosh, can you believe it? New York, no different. Almost anywhere across the country where you see upheaval and people are absolutely coming to the forefront and defying, and they won't live by the rules. They're drug-ridden, they're problematic, they have mental health, and I get that. When I first got out of the military, I was a complete idiot, and I was homeless for a long time. But as one of the gentlemen said earlier, I didn't stay in that because I got a hand up. I didn't get a handout. But going back to city leaders in Portland, Seattle, those kinds of things, where they've talked to and the mayor's in charge usually, and that's the boss of the chief. So chief, if there's ever a time, or has there ever been a time, that you've been asked by the mayor, city councils, to stand down from doing legal law enforcement of rules and laws of the city to where it puts the people of the city in jeopardy? Because we've seen other mayors do that, and the chief has either lost their job, which I'm a law-abiding citizen, and I love our police more so than most people can imagine. And I've been in law enforcement, I've been in probation, and my last job before I retired was working for the state and running drug court for people that have had those issues. So again, going back to safety and security, and if we're turning a blind eye to the things that are going on and not enforcing real laws, or the Ninth Circuit has put a wrench in our works, something's got to change. So can you please address what your plan of action would be if you're asked to do that type of thing, if it ever comes up? We want to know.
Okay, I'll tell you emphatically, if this city council or my boss, the city manager, ever told me not to enforce laws, I would not work here anymore. I'm telling you right now, I would leave. And I can tell you they would not do that. This isn't, I talked about it in council last week when there were some great comments by some of my neighbors, our neighbors. The decision, the thing we're talking about tonight wasn't something that was taken lightly. It was an attempt to get a tool to deal with the current problem and restrictions that we have under the law currently in Boise versus Martin and parking and and those types of things. We did not have things on the books that will allow us to engage the homeless populace. Gives us two things: the ability to enforce for those that are service resistant, and it gives us the ability to legally contact people to see if we can get them some help. Because I don't think there's anybody here that would say, yeah, we don't care if people want help, we're just not giving to them. I don't think that's not where I live, right? But the people that want to commit crimes or cause problems in our community, we don't want them here either, and enforcement needs to be taken. So I'm telling you that, to your answer your question, emphatically no. And two is, as we're building this toolbox to give us the ability to engage the homeless population, there's two things that were passed recently, and that was camping and parking. And yeah, that Boise v. Barton is a big problem for us. It's a problem from everybody in the 9th District, which includes 11 states, something like that. So the whole western part of the United States is having the same difficulty that we're having here in Lacey.
I'd like to ask who in the Lacey City Council has the authority to modify zoning? I believe the area you're selecting as Main Street is for industrial or commercial. If these people are going to come there to stay in an RV to live overnight for their 12 hours, that would make it residential. Does that change zoning for that area? And why aren't there homes being built there? And if there's going to be leased property in the area, how can it be leased and available if that area is being taken up by our emergency plan here.
So, go ahead, Rick.
So the, yes, the area all around the Main Street right-of-way is Hawkesbury Business District. It's commercial mixed-use zoning. But again, this is not a zoning issue. It's a on-street parking permit issue in the right-of-way. And so that's the difference. So for instance, if you set up a residential program there or put homes on those properties, you would not be able to do it unless you did change the zoning. Or if you do potentially an encampment, you'd have to go through the encampment or if one is ever adopted. So the zoning wouldn't apply to the Main Street corridor. That's a parking permit issue and not a zoning issue.
Hi, my name's Dennis Staley. I'm a little familiar with RV parks and RVs, and I really question your $4,000 a month. It might cover a fence, and it might cover a Santa can. What happens if if he's got to be out of there in 12 hours, he breaks down or he doesn't start? You going to tow him out of there? And who's going to pay for it? It happens all the time. And you want to answer?
Sure.
Okay.
So that's a great question. I mean, life happens, right? Things happen. We had instances in the back here where folks are trying to leave and they couldn't leave because they had an issue with their car. So we gave them some extra time. It wasn't a significant amount of time to make sure they were getting something done with the car. And if it gets to the point where they just can't get it done, then we'd have to pick up the expense of towing their vehicle to a legal location.
So we pay for it then. We, the taxpayers, pay for it. The other question, or a couple of questions I've got, manufacturer standards with an RV is it's good for 10 or 12 years if it's maintained. And I don't see too many of them here that are 2009 or newer. And they're supposed to be, are they supposed to be licensed? I saw one the other day was 2014.
Yes, so that's one of their criteria for any vehicle driving on the road, RV or anything else, it needs to be licensed, correct?
They have to have insurance.
And they have to have insurance.
Before you'll issue them a permit.
That's correct.
How the hell can I afford insurance for the thing if they're homeless and they're living?
The fact that somebody's homeless does not exempt them from the law. So if they choose to live in a vehicle or an RV and they're not, they don't have a registration, they don't have a driver's license, they don't have insurance, it does not give them a free ticket to violate the law.
So you won't give them a permit if they don't have insurance?
Correct.
Thank you.
I have three questions quickly. I want to be sensitive to everyone's time. I know it's getting late. Is this dissatisfaction within your constituency enough to stop the Main Street parking ordinance? This is question number one. Question number two is, when will the decision be made for the Main Street parking, i.e. a date? And lastly, when will it be implemented if you decide to move forward with this against the consensus of us? And for how long will it be?
That is a question for our city manager.
Clearly, this is an unpopular decision. So it's going to be difficult to probably go forward with this. I will tell you, though, my concern is the last part we have not enforced is car camping, and that's still occurring in the back parking lot. And that's a different level of complexity because it does start to brush up against Boise versus Martin, or Martin versus Boise. But again, if that's the consensus of obviously the city council leadership, then obviously we're not going to go for that recess or that resource. But I would argue it is a potential resource to try to deal with all the issues that we're trying to solve within the community. That being said, I may be getting direction soon.
Is there a date, and when will it be implemented?
So right now there is no date. It was basically set up to be used as temporary parking. So there's no launch date yet because we wanted to have this informational meeting.
So as we sit here today, we get a news report for a business owner that was in this room earlier today that has left. The Hawks Prairie Pharmacy was just robbed. Just now, came over a blotter. Two gentlemen. 2 gentlemen jumped over the counter demanding drugs.
Okay, so obviously I've been in here since about 6 o'clock, so I don't have that information, but my patrol commander's standing right back here, and he may have some information, and whether or not the people are homeless or what we know.
Information on if they were homeless or not, but we did have an implied armed robbery where 2 suspects did jump over the counter of the Hawks Prairie Pharmacy at about the 2500 block of Marvin Road Northeast. Our detectives are out on the scene, interviewing folks, investigating right now.
Is everybody okay?
Everybody is okay, there were no injuries.
He said he was thinking he probably had to shut his business down.
So look, again, I'm your neighbor, so I'm out there and I visit the same businesses you do on a daily basis. And your concerns are valid. I don't know if that was a homeless person that jumped the counter. I don't know that. Now, it very well may have been. I don't know that. And we're here talking about homeless situation and homeless problems. I don't know that yet. But regardless of their socioeconomic status, those people will be brought to justice the full extent of the law. And we're out there right now. I can tell you that I don't remember the last time there was a robbery. That's why I said, what's a robbery? Because a lot of times people, if something happens in a residence, your bike was stolen out of your garage, something like that, which is terrible. But they'll say I was robbed. Well, that's not robbery. That's it's a different crime. So that's why I asked what that was.
All right, we got a question over here.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so again, my name is Anna, and coming to you as a business owner, I know my family's been in the restaurant business for over 30 years. We have one here in Lacey, but I know how much taxes we pay, and so one of the questions is, are the people that are staying there, do they pay taxes towards our city? No, okay, so obviously. But so then what I'm saying, I would like to know, so I work for what I have, and I pay taxes to you guys. So all in the end, I came here today, missed work, and so what I want to know is, you mentioned previously that the decision's not final, but for the purpose of transparency, can you share with us how the final decision will be made on whether it will be there or where I need to go next to not have this happen?
So I think on that one, the right thing to do would be announce that at a public meeting, at a city council meeting. So it would be televised, and then we'd actually make that formal announcement if we intend to go forward with that.
So the decision will be made by all of you here with the input that you gathered.
Yeah, I mean, the idea with this meeting was to gather information, have a discussion about it, and then we could take.
You are doing that today. So you're informing us. The reason this meeting is to hear you and to get that information. But in the end, it's the council that actually votes on whether we were to move forward on something.
Can we do a vote of just everybody in the room, like who wants to stand up, and let's just see, just for the sake of
So, excuse me, one second. So the problem with that is, although believe me, I want to hear what you have to say, and I take it seriously what people in the room are saying. There's probably 100, a little over 100 people here, maybe. Remember that there's 51,000 people in the city. So obviously, we can't take a vote in this room to make decisions. Absolutely, but it's not. But it's not for a vote. We are hearing you. Clearly hearing you. Oh, I mean, I think we could do that. I mean, I can answer that for you without having to take the vote. Every person in this room is against it happening. That's why they're here. Virtually every. There's a couple that may feel differently. But I mean, yeah, that's loud and clear. We hear you.
Hello, my name is Barbara Chambers. I live in Thurston County, not in the city of Lacey, but y'all are my neighbors, so I'm here anyway. I was a federal enforcement and regulatory official for over 34 years, and whenever I see a government cluster, and you know what I'm talking about, it's always because the pressure's coming from above you. Okay, you all, and I think you all are trying to do the best you can. I really do. I don't have any doubt about that whatsoever. But some of the decisions, I watched the Yelm city open house last night or a city council meeting with them. Everybody feels the same way, but the progress is still going toward enabling homeless people. And instead of calling it a homeless crisis or something else, why don't we come up with a plan to eliminate homeless situations? Okay, again, the people that really need the help and want the help, find them and get them the help.
Absolutely.
Open up McNeil Island again. Come on, we got a great facility to put these addicts in. You know, there's ways to do that. I feel for you guys, I really do. But, you know, I've talked to Thurston County also, and they're not real, you know, I get the same spinning wheel effect. I feel like a hamster in a wheel. And it's the same thing with the county. And for those of you that want to know, I also attended a presentation with a few people in this room with some presenters from the county. Go on their website. It may not be there tomorrow, it may not be there next day, but there is a 5-year plan on, quote, homelessness. Y'all need to read it, okay? You need to read it, you need to absorb it to know what's coming down at this. It trickles, you know what it say? It trickles down from the top, and that's no joke. It's the Thurston County website. In fact, one of the ladies, I don't know if she's still here, I don't see her, she was a little frustrated with our county commissioner. Look there, though. There's a 5-year plan that should be posted because I asked specifically, post it before you approve it. Please post it. Give us a chance to comment on it so you don't get this kind of backlash, because it hurts. I'm sure they're getting pushed by the county. And they're also look for that presentation. The lady's name, Keely? Yeah, Keely. Okay. Yeah, it's not a real user-friendly website, I'll warn you now. Yeah. It's really not. You may have to hunt and peck. You know what, if you hunt and peck more than 5 minutes, call them. Say, hey, look, I'm looking for your 5-year plan, and I'm looking for the homeless presentation that you have and that you've been presenting to the different city councils. Believe me, they'll help you. The ladies that answer the phone are great.
May I say something very quickly? First of all, I want to thank you all for being here. Your engagement in your community is heartwarming and amazing. This is what democracy looks like. So I want to just say that first, and that I hear you. And here's what I want to say about the scope of authority of municipal government. I've heard a lot of comments about drug addiction therapy and mental health awareness and therapy in that regard. So we need to, as a people, and I implore you, go to your higher levels of government who can provide that funding. Go to the top where we get that sort of funding. Please show this kind of initiative in trying to get those things done, because municipal government is not going to be able to do that for our community. It's just not a possibility within our budget. And it's not really in the scope of what municipal government is supposed to do or what we were intended to do. So please take this initiative and this passion that you all have, because it's going in a good direction, and bring it up to your higher levels of government. And again, thank you so much for being here.
Hi, I'm Lorraine Donner, and I live in Jubilee. My Jubilee friends have gone. And first of all, I think you're all doing what you think you have to do on the council, because I'm sure you hear complaints all the time about come and get the cars off the street. We hear it all the time too from our neighbors, right? And you do what you have to do, so you get under pressure. What I'm glad to hear tonight, because one of the questions would have been adding to the police force. I'm glad that's happening. I think you need more than just that at the rate the problem is growing. But beyond that, I'm stymied to figure out why, when your experiment failed, all of these people, I only learned about it 2 days ago through that home site thing that I hardly ever touch. And I stumbled on it, then I got involved in dialogue I should not ever get involved in. But these people lost sleep over this. How does it get this far when your experiment wasn't working? Why not take it beyond that point before everyone gets crazy about this? And I'm all for helping the homeless. However we can help the homeless, we should do it, because we help them, we do help ourselves. I'm not saying enable them. I'm saying help them the way I worked with Sidewalk for a few months, and I've seen these people, and people tell stories about them. Some of it's true, some of it's not true. I met people who live in cars, and they cry because they can't get a home. I mean, there are people who need help. I don't feel that the solution is to build an RV-type parking lot, personally, because we have the police force and we have regulations that you can contain that if you have enough help to do it. You need more help. At least I think you need more help. What do I know, right? So, but I think that's one point. The other point is, I know you all have power because we elected you, and I helped some of you get there for the city council, and I think you're trying your best, right? I commend you for that. But this is a big thing. To put an RV park or a homeless camp of any kind, though I am in favor of helping homeless, in our city, to me, should go to the vote of all 50,000 people who live in this city. That's too big a decision to be left to you guys, who will get crucified if the thing doesn't work out. And there's too many possibilities that it won't work out. That's just common sense. That's the way it's going to go. So maybe that's what you need to be doing. Get your case together a lot better, take it down the road, invest the money in an election, and get good feedback. And the rest of us should be talking to those people higher up in government to provide the things they need to provide. Sidewalk goes down there, they run out of money in the middle of the month, for heaven's sakes. How can they get someone a house if they don't have the money? I rest my case.
No, thank you. I appreciate your comments, and I appreciate everyone who is willing to talk to your state representatives, your federal representatives, and see if we can get some more solutions. All along the way, every council member up here cares deeply about this community and wants to make the right decision. All along the way, we've been asking our chief of police, what else do you need? What else do you need? Do we need more police officers? Yes, we do. We put it in the budget. So the question that was asked earlier is, what else can we do? We ask that same question to our city manager and to our chief of police all the time. This is an issue that keeps all of us up at night, every night, because it is heartbreaking, and there's no easy answers. If there was an easy answer, we would have come up with it already. And so we are trying to use the few tools that we have available to make sure the police can do their job. And you're not going to get any resistance from this council to make sure the police have every tool they have at their disposal to do their job. We're trying to do the right thing. We honestly are. We love this community. A lot of us have lived here for a long time. I was born and raised right here in an old historic Lacey, just a block away. I love this community, and I'll do everything in my power to make it the best community possible. And so we are trying. We are trying our best, and we listen to you. If I could come up with a magic wand, trust me, I would do it. We are restricted by the 9th District Court. We have to say, okay, you can't be here, but you can be someplace else. Where's the other place? What's that other piece of property? Not my backyard, for sure. I understand that. I don't, and we hear you. We absolutely hear you. And under our form of government, we set policy, and our city manager enforces policy. That's how this government works. And so we have charged our city manager with almost an impossible task. We said, this is a rising problem, come up with solutions. He's lost all of his hair because of it. So trust me, we take this very seriously. We listen to you all the time. We get emails. And unfortunately, there's a lot of misinformation out there that we try to correct all along the way. But it's a tough issue.
Thank you. Andy, I appreciate your comments. Those are really good. Thank you. Appreciate hearing that. Pretty simple question here. As Lenny mentioned, you know, our population here has now surpassed 50,000 people. City of Lacey police budget is what, roughly in the $10 million range, I think. So my question is simple. How many officers and detectives are here for the City of Lacey? Not here, but for the community.
So right now we have 55 commissioned or sworn officers on your police department. That goes all the way up to me. I asked the city manager, gave him a new organizational chart to help with not just this problem, but crime in general in the city, which is still extremely low. And I presented that to the city manager. It's going to go to council for vote on Thursday, but I have received a great deal of support knowing how much we're growing, how quickly we're growing. Because again, we need the tools in the toolbox to continue to keep a very, very safe city. And they have provided that for us, and I'm hoping the vote will go smoothly on Thursday.
What was the cost for the city to have the RVs in the parking lot back there per month? Right now, you want to spend $4,000 a month out there. What was it costing the city when they were parked back there?
So right now we have security cameras up there. The only thing missing from this site is fencing. So maybe it's about half the cost. Yeah.
By the parking lot back
Right.
here.
Again, there's a timing issue here. We were intending to use Main Street, and now we're having this informational meeting. There was an intention to use that as a resource. I get there's a distinction between let's go to Main Street or let's go to City Hall parking lot versus Main Street. Again, we'll have to rethink that whole process.
Okay, the question I have is, if the same requirements to park at City Hall are the same ones that are going to be parking on Main Street, and you can't get anybody permitted to park in City Hall, why would you open Main Street and pay $4,000 a month when you can't get people to park here permitted?
No,
Absolutely.
so great
I mean,
question.
Right here, they're close to services. The law enforcement is a step away. They don't have to drive 2 miles.
Right. So
We agree. I think that's what you heard from a couple of us already. That's what I said. That's what the mayor said. We are not looking to open that site because we don't have anyone permitted.
Then close
So
it.
we're in agreement with what you just said.
Get rid of the porta potties.
The
dumpster.
And again, if we're not going to be using it, obviously we will get rid of those things. So we're not going to continue to pay for them if we're not using it. Thank you. So we're in agreement with what you said, sir.
So does that include Meridian?
Sorry?
Oh, that's Main Street?
I have kind of a stupid question here, but I don't get it. Why would you need a fence around it? Are you afraid people are going to break in there and steal their trailer? No, I just don't get it. Why is there a fence? Why are we paying for a fence?
Probably a good question for the chief, I think.
Yeah, and I'll try to answer it real quickly. Again, the overriding concern when we're talking about setting up any site, regardless if it's temporary parking or if you talk about a temporary site as it relates to the Emergency Housing Ordinance, is safety and security. So again, the fencing was there to provide additional security. That's why that fencing is there. So again, we're protecting the adjacent property with the fencing, so you're not going off the footprint of the roadway, and that was originally why that was put in place.
Okay, I just have a quick question. Actually, I would kind of like to address both of you. So you'd brought up earlier about the limitation on what we can do to these people that are camping in tents on vacant properties or in the woods back there. Is there no vagrancy policy? Trespassing policies? Squatting policies?
If somebody's on private property, absolutely we can enforce.
Okay.
And we have done. And that's how that encampment that was in your neighborhood got dispersed.
The Meridian one?
Yes, I believe so, yes. The issue is if people are camping on public property.
Define public to me. Like right here in City Hall?
Correct. Sidewalks. The plaza right here. City parks. Well, we do have rules for city parks. But yeah, just public property that's owned, by the citizens, by everybody.
Okay.
There's no rules to allow enforcement of camping unless there's alternate shelter available. And without an ordinance to allow for the creation of a shelter on whether it's private property, public property, wherever, if someone's camping on the ground, on the sidewalk, law enforcement can't do anything about it. That's a big issue. That's the Martin v. Boise decision.
Okay,
And they
so
said
those people that
it's
are-
unconstitutional, it's a violation of the 8th Amendment to criminalize homelessness. And it's very complex, but that's basically the bottom line.
Okay, so you're talking about people on the sidewalks, which you had
Correct.
none going on back here. You had no reason to open up that up there for people.
Preventative. We don't
But
want.
if they're on the sidewalk, where's their RV?
Well, that's not necessarily relative to RV. That's a different
That's my
topic.
point. We're bringing
Okay.
two things together that don't mix.
Oh, no, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's such a difficult concept. We've been struggling with it, and the city manager and the chief and I discuss all the time, and we go round and round. It's very difficult. But the relationship between RV, whether they are homeless, if they're living in an RV, there's that argument. You know, versus camping on the sidewalk. I mean, are you?
But you just said that you can't prevent them from doing that, but yet you're saying in another sentence that they can't have tents up
We
there.
are enforcing parking with the RVs.
Okay, so
That
they
we
can bring
do
their tents, because
outside
that's
of the
technically a
auspices.
public sidewalk, right? So they can put their tents up there. Now, because that's public sidewalk.
I don't know what question I'm hearing, but
So no, they cannot.
But that can't be enforced.
But you can't enforce it. So now that you've brought in the RVs, their buddies can bring their tents in.
no.
No, because it's right away. It's travel way, that's a safety issue. It's the sidewalk, would be, and there's no sidewalks out there built yet.
There's no sidewalks. Okay, so they can't be in those parking stalls
That's correct.
because people drive in parking stalls?
This is not a permitted camping site. It's an extension of the ability to park. Believe me, I mean,
I feel like I'm going in circles here, because
Yeah,
you keep telling me that they don't need a permit to camp, and you can't do anything about it. I don't get it.
it's more than welcome to call me at any time, and I will spend a lot of time trying to discuss this with
So
you.
that's just
It's-
section one. Section two, you're talking about them being required to be engaged in services. So we all know that DSHS requires privacy rules, okay? How are you gonna verify this information? Is it only if they're gonna go through the city, what is it, city action through them? Or are you verifying if they're on food stamps? Is that gonna be enough to provide you that they're on a public assistance and that they need assistance?
No, public assistance isn't services. It is an attempt to get housed and get off the street through whatever means possible, working with their service providers to help them get help. So when we work with them, they don't divulge a bunch of information that it's not available to us, but they will tell us whether or not they're working with somebody and where they are in the process.
Obviously, city growth has outpaced infrastructure. We have a large military retirees, law enforcement hearing. What's the status of auxiliary police? And we don't necessarily, may not be able to arrest people who are potential troublemakers, but we can definitely make it uncomfortable for them. Or, I'm sure as you know, that, a good way, part of prevention is a cop on the beat. Do we have an auxiliary police force?
We do not have an auxiliary police force, but we have an incredibly proactive community. And here's a demonstration of it right now. We receive Ring doorbell video from neighborhoods that has solved a ton of crime. I cannot tell you how many criminals we've arrested versus Facebook interaction and people looking up and helping us out with things. There's 50,000 people. There's 100,000 eyes out there, and there's 55 of us. So your cooperation, seeing something, you see something, say something, you've heard of it, sounds cliche, it is so true. 99% of all crime is solved by you. You see something, it looks strange, you don't like the way something looks, you're in the neighborhood every day, something isn't right, you heard something, you see something, you call us, we investigate it. That gives us the ability to legally look into something. if you give us some information. So we do not have an auxiliary police department. We don't have a reserve police department, but we do have 55 people that are committed to keep this community safe. And by doing things like this and hearing from you and what your issues and problems are, and not being afraid to, like you are tonight, not being afraid to talk about what your concerns are. I hear a lot. I didn't want to bother the police. Bother us. That's why we're here. Okay. Yeah. It is a tool in our tool belt, but let me explain two things. One is being under the influence of anything, right, is not illegal in the state of Washington, okay? But number two is we take, I don't know, 5 to 10 a day, people that have some significant mental health issues or drug-related addiction issues. They can't care for themselves, they can't care for other people, to the hospital. We do. We are using it. We don't have control over what happens after they're accepted in the hospital, which... Yeah. Yeah, you know what? I agree. So I'm talking as a citizen and as your police chief, okay? We're different than Olympia. I can't speak to Olympia officers. I can't speak to what they do. You have a quality, empathetic police department here that really care about this community. About 90% of my guys and gals live here, born here, raised here, so they have a real vested interest in keeping this the safest city in the South Sound, or all of the western part of the state. And that's not gonna change. And again, your city council, I know there's a lot of difference of opinion here, but they've asked me, what do you need? Do you feel supported? What can we do for you? And my boss does that all the time, and we're getting there. It takes a while. It takes a while to get there, but we have some tools, we have some support. Looks like we're gonna be getting some additional staffing, and I hear you. And I see it, I live it when I'm not wearing this, so your comments are appreciated.
I just have two quick things. Chief, 2 weeks ago, we were at Hawks Prairie Pharmacy where Sunil experienced a horrible event tonight. And there was one of the RVs that had originally been parked over here, parked in front of his pharmacy. And it had originally been on the street, which I don't know if that's County Street, over by Providence Family Health Care. And then it moved onto the parking lot right in front of Sunil's. And he expressed to me, he said how sad it was going to be that he was going to have to put up plexiglass in between him and his customers, because he was now, and his staff were concerned about leaving the pharmacy at night and what risks were going to be associated with that. So maybe your folks can look into that situation too. But will this be on the agenda for your October 24th council meeting? The RV parking area in Hawks Prairie on Main Street.
So the October 24th meeting is the budget presentation. I'd like y'all to come if you'd like to see that. But it is not. Is that a no? But again, it could be in a November session. We'll be talking that as council.
Just very quickly, we talked about tools in the toolbox. I want to mention one tool that we currently have passed by county commissioners in 2008. It's called the treatment sales tax. And what that is 1 penny of every $10 spent in Thurston County goes toward mental health and drug addiction therapy. Now, that is not a lot of money. And so many of us are saying we're not in favor of any more taxes. Well, that's a tax at a local level that might do some good. So perhaps research that, decide if that's something that you would like to see done here in Thurston County. The second tool is a new law, more recent law called Ricky's Law. I invite you to look that up. It was initiated by Representative Lauren Davis from up north. So Ricky's Law and the treatment sales tax are two tools that we are not really taking advantage of. So if you want to look into those, please do.
Thank you. Did you want to say something, Chief?
Yeah, I just wanted to finish a comment about the RV parked in front of the pharmacy. Something that we've done a pretty good job at is getting out and getting information to our business owners. I'm sorry a couple of our business owners had to leave, but with their partnership in giving us the ability to enforce trespassing laws on their property, we're able to go from 27 problem camping situations on public property, and now we're down to 4. And so what it's done is the property owners have given us the ability to act as their agent to enforce trespassing. And that's really been successful in addressing this issue. Only on private property. So if they're parked in a parking lot of the pharmacy, they can give us the ability to do that. But if it's on a public street, then that's different.
Thank you. This evening's been very spirited in conversation back and forth and getting questions answered. And I believe that many of us, if not all of us here, have a heart for not only our community and the city, but for the leadership as well. We're not cold, we're not heartless, we're not calloused in any way, shape, or form. So you've heard the hard side of what a lot of folks have said, myself included. Here's the soft side. And I've heard this already 3 or 4 or 5 different times from as many people. The city has asked the chief, has asked the city manager, what do you need from us? I agree with that. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Enough to say that I think, too, the people in here, because they love their community, we love our place and the neighbors that we have and the family that we've raised here and everything else, and we've addressed kind of that big elephant in the room, and we've all somewhat have tackled that for getting answers back and forth. But as a citizen of this community, as somebody who loves this community and loves the people in it, let me ask you this question. What do you need from us? What do you want us to help you with? What can you tell us that you need more of? Do you need boots on the ground? Do you need hands to get dirty with you? Do you need us to come and support you in several different ways up the ladder? Because you have a chain of command just like everybody else. And so, Chief, I think too, even though we don't have systems in place that are secondary to the primary purpose and function of the police department, you need us to come and wash a car for you, you know? I mean, whatever it takes. You need us to do some filing, answer phones. I don't know, folks, but I think we can kvetch and we can complain and we can do all these things and be mad at our city fathers. But I, for one, am going to stand up and say, look, I'll get dirty with you. You call me. I'll give you my number. I don't care. And I'm almost 66 years old, and I'm no stranger to hard work. Trust me. I can remember being a young lad picking grapes, you know, picking up walnuts, doing farm work, dairy. My grandfather owns a dairy here in Olympia. And I can remember many a days getting out and getting dirty for the productivity of the good of the family. Well, you guys are getting adopted now. I'm just getting a soft spot. So, you know, and I'm usually a hard case kind of guy, and I really don't give a crap about too much. People will tell you. And I can yell and scream with the best of them. And I'm well educated, so I know from where I speak. So I have a lot to offer. Do you want to tap into it? Let me know what you need. Suddenly we can just take this to the next level. And I believe that. I'm willing. I'm willing. Thank you.
That's a really good point. And so how do we, as a community, get our state representatives, because it really is at a state level that we need to fight this, right? So how do we get them here? How do we get this participation with our state representatives?
So, yeah, that's... That's a great question. We're in a very unique situation where Olympia is right here, with all of our state representatives right here. I've been on the Hill countless times when it comes to law enforcement issues, when it comes to looking at more resources for this issue. And since I'm right here, I get called upon quite often. I've testified with our former chief of police. I'm sure we'll be testifying going forward. There are a lot of opportunities. I would suggest find out who your state rep is. Most of us are either in Legislative District 22 or the 2nd, depending on where you're at. If you're in the city limits, you're in the 22nd, call your state representatives and tell them we need more help. The mayors from Lacey, Olympia, Tumwater, and the chair of the Thurston County Commission, we met with the governor's office, and there are properties that are state right-of-way properties that we have no control over. There's properties right over here by Department of Ecology where there's been some homeless encampments there, and there's nothing we can do about it. And yet the state doesn't have a plan. And so what we tell them is, hey, if you're going to move people off of state property, don't just kick them out and move them into our cities. You need to come up with a plan, just like we're up here trying to figure out what the heck we can do as well. And so we do need your voice and to talk to your state representatives and say, hey, we have to come up with a statewide plan when it comes to this. As you know, Lacey, we have given our police some of the sharpest tools we have available for them to enforce the law. But we don't necessarily see that in other places. And so we need to look at this as an entire region. That's what we've seen mostly here, I believe, recently, is Olympia had a huge problem. They started to try to implement their problem, or find solutions to their problem, and set up a encampment, and they also put up a tiny home village. And for the people who would not follow those rules, they left Olympia, and they ended up in our back parking lot here. And so now it became our problem. And so we had to pass an ordinance, and unfortunately, they didn't necessarily want to connect to services, and they've moved down, a lot of them around Capitol Lake right now. Well, that hasn't solved the problem either. And so we just keep moving this problem around, and that's not helping anyone.
To facilitate asking them to come, let's get this group back on Nextdoor app or whatever and come and see if they'll come here, right? And talk to us so we have a bigger voice. Not
I agree.
Just one of us calling one at a time.
Just a follow-on comment too. I 100% agree with you. So following from the comment, because I did look up that ordinance and I didn't see that subsection, but I think it would be beneficial for the public. And there was a gal over here who talked about the 5-year plan. She said, you have to dig for it. And that's a huge problem. We shouldn't have to dig for it. And when I was reading through that ordinance today, I was like, okay, well, this is an issue. And all of a sudden, when you said 12 hours, I'm like, well, I didn't see that in here. So having that either out here or on social media, on Facebook, on your website, clear as day, would be, I guess, my comment for that, just so we can all have that same information and access. And even our state officials, LD 22, you have Senator Hunt and Representative Dolan, Representative Doglio, and LD 2, you have Representative Wilcox and Barkis and Senator Becker. I've met them all. They're all fantastic people. But having that information easy and accessible for everybody. So I just wanted to follow on because I couldn't agree more with you.
Thank you.
So my background as a citizen, other than my real life, as a business owner and all that kind of thing, has been in nonpartisan advocacy work. And being so close to Olympia, I take on issues and advocacy work, once you start it, it's kind of addicting. So you go up there and you don't just talk to your 22nd LD reps, you talk to everybody who's around you in your region. And I will tell you this, it is time consuming. You have to make appointments, and you have to, if you want to go in there and really make a statement, I tell you what, just like all of you coming in here to our city hall, 10 people going to see a representative, they have small offices. Imagine, all right? It makes a difference to go there in person and to not just talk to your representatives, but the people around in your region and say, hey, you know, I'm not your constituent exactly, but this is a regional issue and it's important enough to me to come and talk to you, to write an email, to make a phone call. And all those things are time consuming, but if this is so important to all of us, we should be doing that. And I would absolutely love to see a town hall situation, which we've had one before, which is where I met you, of our 22nd LD, where our reps came out and people came out and chatted with them. And so I don't see a reason why we can't say, hey, I'd really like to see you, because that is also their job, just like it's our job to sit here and hear you every day, because that's our job and that's what we want to do. So please call them.
It would help if in your Lacey newsletter that comes in the water bill, if you had your emails and your office phones listed. Do you know how hard it is to get hold of any of you guys? It makes a trip down here to pick up your business cards, which I've done. I just don't know where I put them.
They gave me the dead mic. Who knew? Well, first of all, I want to thank every one of you for coming out here tonight. And believe me, I hear you loud and clear. And if, as has been said tonight, if this were easy, it would have been taken care of by now. You asked, you know, what you can do. I think, you know, if all of us keep open hearts, open minds, I think if we can eventually come up with some sites, let's organize food crews who come out and, you know, basically serve a soup kitchen. Neighborhood watches are important, but I think the most important thing I heard tonight is people are scared, people don't like it, and I am too. I mean, I've had people in campers and cars, like a block, less than a block, sometimes right in front of my house. Our neighborhood has had needles in our children's playground and in our water drains. So, I mean, I'm living the same reality that you are, and I share your concerns. But I think we all just need to take a beat and understand that this is not a Lacey problem, it's not a Thurston County problem, it's a national problem where our our social systems are breaking down, and we've got to try to get hold of this the best we can, wrap around our arms around it the best we can. The last thing I want to do is hurt any one of you or make your lives any harder than they are. So we will be going back to the table and talking about this, and I would be surprised if you see us putting the RV camp out there. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. You can get a hold of us personally. Our emails and our phone numbers is on the Lacey website under council, and we're happy to talk to you anytime. Thank you.